All right, Brent Porcio, topvelocity.net. We're going to cover 4 velocity hacks to help you increase velocity or just to optimize your velocity for the game. This would be something preseason wise. We wouldn't do this in the off season. We would develop this in the off season. So ultimately, you've been through this development in your off season, and you're implementing this in your preseason, in-season bullpens and in preparation for the game. If you've never done the 3x pitching velocity program or any of our off-season training, it still will help. Ultimately, I want you to get success out of it, and then just know that, hey, if in the off-season I can implement this approach better, then I will continue to get more velocity out of it. Okay, so probably my favorite one to start with. A lot of scouts tell me that they can pick my guys out because of this approach. So you might get a lot of people coming to you saying, hey, do you do the 3x pitching velocity program when they see this? So torsion is something that I kind of coined with pitching. It's a term that's been around forever, but I brought it into the pitching delivery like I brought in triple extension, force vectors. But in torsion, what that is it's a twisting force. And what we're going to do for our first, I guess we'll call hack, is we're going to take the drive leg and we're going to create torsion. Here's the thing. I'm going to show the analysis right now. High velocity pitchers typically have a more stable hip position. You'll see as their hips rotate, they stay more neutral, if anything, tilted towards glove side because that's where the trunk throws harder. Low velocity guys typically are more towards the arm side. That's an unstable hip. And really that's how it works, guys, for health as well too. If this hip is weak and collapsing, this arm is weak and collapsing, right? It's built on that foundation. So torsion stabilizes the leg. The way the knee works is that the ligaments twist in the knee, and they actually twist in the direction of turning externally. So if I turn the knee externally, it's like tightening a rag. If I turn it internally, it opens the twisting ligaments and it creates instability, and that's typically where all our injuries happen. So if we allow out of our leg lifts to get this position, we're unstable. We could ultimately start to hurt ourselves, and we're not going to generate a lot of force. So you're going to put your foot flush to the rubber, you can take your femur, and you're going to turn into that rubber, right? Be careful, you don't want to rip your knee open, but turn it into the rubber, you'll feel stability. What helps that twist is flexion in the hip, counter rotation in the hips, flexion in the hip. That's why you see guys like Bryce Harper internally rotating their legs, sitting way back here. They're loading in torsion. They're coiling a lot of energy. So we're going to do that in the delivery. So you come set. You can also do in the windup. You just have to practice in the windup. You can come set, push your hip back, turn torsion in the leg, and feel all that stability like a rod going into the ground. That's going to be your first hack, because when we start moving and we hold that stability, we're going to have all this stability to explode and generate force and rotation and power our delivery. So that's going to be your first one. A great tool to train that is the VeloPro. So go to topvelocity.net/VeloPro if you want to look into the VeloPro. What you do is you put this belt on. Right, you put the belt on, you put this is like a sock. You're going to put this through your foot. Okay, then you're going to wrap it around your ankle and then loop it through. And then you're going to take your bungees. You want one on the right hip if you're right-handed pitcher on the outside, and that's going to go to the outside hook. And then the other one's going to go underneath to the inside hook. So now you'll see with this device, when you stand up, your leg wants to pop in. So you're having to extend and fire all the musculature from your hip down to stabilize the leg. So when you lift and you counter rotate, it's going to want to help pull you down and load you in, activate all that musculature. As long as you're holding the femur out, externally rotated, you'll feel a really strong, stable position to do your delivery. You could just get here, lift and load and hold torsion and go into counter rotation of that hip. Okay, and just practice this. This device really helps you feel it and get there. Because a lot of low velocity guys are going to want to do this, right? Get out of that leg. That's why the leg will pop up early in your delivery, because you're getting out of that leg. You're not holding stability. great device to do that. And then if you want to get this device, there's a lot more drills, so then use it in your leg drives and everything else. All right, for the second hack would be back leg drive. Ultimately, don't get too crazy with it because it's something you really have to develop. So in a game, let's just emphasize if we're holding torsion and flexion in that hip, let's emphasize before we land, what we call is we want to sink we call it foot sink. You sink the feet up. You want to trigger hip rotation by opening your front, and then you want to power hip rotation by driving your back. You don't really have to rotate your back as long as your front side's open. So you want to trigger it just before you land and then power it. So just think, if I can lift and load and stay torsion, flexion, and ride good energy as long as I can, I'm going to open my front foot and just push off back foot. That's all you got to think about. You know, we ultimately try to implement triple extension. That's the extension of the ankle, the knee, and the hip flexor. That's something that takes, you know, a good off season or more to develop. So I definitely wouldn't want you trying that in a game. Just know that if you can load as long as you can, ride this hip flexion and torsion as long as you can, you're going to trigger the opening of with your front leg, and you're just going to try to push and accelerate off that rubber at the last minute as much as you can with the back leg. I think that would be a good way to do it. And then there's a tool that helps you with that. It's the King of the Hill. And this tool, topvelocity.net/KOH, King of Hill, it tells you if you're driving force into a cranked plunger that you can add resistance, reduce resistance. So this way, you could just, in the drill, instead of just emphasizing, am I extending, you could just listen to your plate. Am I popping the plate? So I'm going to lift, load, right, torsion, holding flexion, and then I'm going to trigger hip rotation front side and power hip rotation back side. Like that, and you just want to hear that pop. Ultimately, that's all you need to worry about, and then you could work on how much force you're trying to get out of that. Because the more force we can get out of that back leg, the more energy going that way, the more power through hip rotation, and if you're separating, more velocity. So that moves us on to the next one, which will be really what it is separation. So it's just basic understanding. If I generate more force that way, I better delay my trunk, because if I allow my trunk to accelerate with it, it's just going to be wasted energy. So out of the gate, you're in hip flexion here, and you want to be more counter-rotated with your shoulders to get it behind this hip, because the hip's going to lead the way. You want the trunk then following that. So if the trunk's ahead of that, the hip can't lead the way because the trunk's already going. So we need to stay separated, hips to shoulder. Take this hip and separate from that shoulder. I want this delayed as long as possible. So when you hit front foot, along with that separation, this is called contralateral tilt. It's leaning to your glove side. You want to try to lean up to 25 degrees. So this is 0. That's about 25. If I go past that, what happens is ball speed stops going up, torques on the arm keep going up. Don't want that. So what you're going to do is, into your leg drive, you're staying separated. I want to get my chin. I don't want anything going early. I want rotation going early. I want forward tilt going early. I want to get my chin behind, or right over my glute, right? Sitting right over my glute at that point as I'm here. So when I drive, it'll be easier to separate. And what happens is you're going to delay more of the end of the chain. That means more energy is going to come up. Plus you're giving it more time in rotation and forward tilt with your trunk to put speed on the ball. So contralateral tilt, remember, this is 0. This would be ipsilateral, arm side. This is contralateral, glove side. And if I'm hitting front foot here and separated, that's about 25 degrees right there. Boom, where I want to be. Last one is our fourth velocity hack is going to be front leg. And we can bring the King of the Hill and the Velo Pro in on this. I'm not going to put the Velo Pro on, but you can use them both. You're going to put the plate down in front of you, and you're going to put your front foot on that plate. Okay? And you're going to shift weight into that plate. Okay? And this is challenging. I'm just going to make it real quick. If you want to get more instruction on it, topvelocity.net/King of Hill. What you're going to do is, let's just work in shoulders open from here. Get as low as you can and get behind that leg, like you just hit front foot. I want you to shift your weight into it, because that's what happens when you land. Shift your weight into it, and when this shifts, all this loads back. External rotation, trunk extension. And then what you're gonna do is this is gonna trigger everything going forward. Then you're gonna extend, pop the plate, and that's gonna launch everything forward in sequence. Chest, or hip, chest, arm, okay? So it looks like this. Boom. Okay, and like I said, you can use the Velo Pro on the front to train that movement. I'll also show here how that's what elite pitchers do better. You're gonna have low velocity guys hitting front foot, not getting a lot of extension, and you're gonna have high velocity guys getting front foot, getting a lot of extension before pitch release. Every one of these components, I have research proving there's a high correlation to improving these components to increasing velocity, which ultimately could happen in your pregame warm-up to get you ready for the game, throwing harder, but best done development-wise in an off-season. So when you get to season, it's already there. It's something you don't have to really work on. It just shows up when you go in, you start your warm-ups, and before you get into the game. Hope that helps. If you like this, subscribe. If not, still subscribe. No. But go to topvelocity.net. If you would like to learn even more, there's tons of articles. We've got tons of videos too on YouTube. And get on our social feeds. We're constantly putting out good stuff for you, and we have a lot more to come.